first and foremost, if you've got at least a shred of motivation left, because in my experience, it's kind of hard to motivate the unmotivated. We always like to say, work with the willing. Maybe you, like me, have from time to time felt a little trapped by the circumstances you're in and felt, gosh, is there any way to get through this? Maybe, as some people have explained to me in some of my interviews, there are people who are conflicted about even trying to be successful because it seems to dishonor those who are suffering. I don't think that I agree with that, but it is something that we need to look at in terms of our inner psychology, or the idea that we do get distracted or depressed or just demotivated by sitting around the house or having to deal with family or looking at the current world events, and these things all have an impact on us. And then I like to approach this from the perspective that, if possible, what if we at least set the goal, set the bar high enough to say, you know what, by the time this is all over and done with, this terrible pandemic we're facing, not only will I be back to normal, or not only will I be okay, or not only will I survive, but I'm going to be better off than I was when this whole thing started. And there's this sort of optimistic point of view that comes from the Chinese character for crisis. Are actually two characters that come together. One of them is challenge and the other is opportunity. And the notion is that that in every crisis there is both challenge, obviously, and there's also an opportunity for something greater. And I think if you reflect on your life, you'll probably see that all the challenges you faced have probably helped to shape you and make you better, and maybe giving you more of a sense of what's possible. So that's a good place for us to stand. And of course, that you have an open mind, that there's at least a part of you that wants to hear something new and isn't, kind of closed off to the possibility of personal development and growth. A couple of quick logistics for those of you who are somewhat new in this world of cyber education. There is a chat box you can have open and avail yourself of. All you have to do is find that button at the bottom of your screen, and that'll give you a chat box on the right side. I personally won't see it just yet because I'm on a full screen slide. But if there's something that you want to type in, there's a question or a comment that you want me to see later, or one that you want Michael or Laura to shout out to me, then feel free to just type something in. You're also, although we'd like you to be muted now, and I think you've all been muted by default, you can unmute yourself. If you have a pressing question, you want to jump in and say how handsome I look or anything like that, you're welcome to jump in as well. If you find yourself having to move around a lot, that's a good time to turn off your camera. We were doing one of these the other day, and I had a woman who was folding her laundry in front of the camera. So we were like, seeing her fold her undies and things. It wasn't really great, and it can be distracting. So if you're not going to be kind of focused, then turn your camera off, and that's totally fine. Do have a paper and pen available because you will be taking notes. And I do recommend, by the way, that it's, although you can go full screen with Zoom, it's good if you could at least see that bar across the top where you could open another browser window, because from time to time you might want to, or you might want to open up a window to take notes or something like that. So one of the tricks of the trade, one of the tips in working with this virtual world, is always be able to get to another screen without having to leave the screen you're on. And finally, stick around to the very end. We'll qualify you guys for a free gift, a bonus. As you might know, I've got really wonderful resources to share with you at the very end. I'll share a resource package that we've created for you, and I invite you to take a look at that. If what you've heard here sounds valuable and you want to take it to the next step, I'll show you how you can do that with me. So a little bit about myself. I spent the first 14 years of my official career working as a chiropractor, and I was a sports medicine doctor. I had the largest sports medicine practice in the state of Vermont. When I sold my practice in '96, I had one of the largest practices in the world, or in the country, and probably in the world. And I still felt the need to move on and try something new in my life. Sometimes when I get the full-on introduction, people introduce me, and I end up listening to my own introduction, and it sounds like I can't hold a job. But I've done a lot of things. I've been a chiropractor. I've been a hypnotist. In fact, that was my next position. I became a stage hypnotist, and I was the official hypnotist for MTV's Spring Break. Dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. And I got to make grown adults do all these funny, silly things. But in the process, I also learned about some of the inner aspects of psychology. What is it that makes us tick? What is it that moves us forward? What is it that stops us or holds us back from succeeding? And that led to a series of books that I wrote over the course of the last several years, books and programs. The most recent of which is the one you see up top center there, called Bulletproof, that just came out last week. And that book is about mental resilience. Thankfully, it came out when it did, because we're all in need of mental resilience. And as I said, I've got some goodies for you later. So Let me just telegraph that this or part of this will be part of your goodie package. Anyway, it's an awesome book. I'm really proud of it. And the work that I do now has taken me all over the world and has put me in front of all kinds of remarkable people. Some of you are familiar with this collage of interesting folks like Steve Martin, Alan Alda, Andy Garcia, Brian Dennehy, John Cleese, Alec Baldwin, Emily Mortimer. And the last two, the two on the bottom there, one of them is right center is Zig Ziglar. For those of you who don't know Zig, he was the quintessential expert in the area of sales and customer service, and he gave several thousand speeches in his life and influenced millions and millions of people and literally wrote the book. I had the good fortune to share the stage with Zig just before he died. He was 95. While I was on stage, he was in the audience taking notes. That just blew my mind because at the age of 95, he still thought there was something left to learn. And I think that's a really good message for us all. What can we do with our lives if we continue to experience them as if we are brand new, what they call beginner's mind? And that was something that he had, and it was something that I encourage everyone to have, which is this sense of wonder and possibility and curiosity, because it'll last a lifetime. Last guy on this picture there is Mark Victor Hansen, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. We go way back together. He is the Chicken Soup for the Soul is the largest selling book of all time next to the Bible. So he's done pretty well for himself. So those are some of the people I've spent time with. And in the last couple of years, I've been graced to share the stage with a number of really remarkable people in something called the Habitude Warrior Conference. Some of you might know Habitude Warrior, and if you don't, you probably should. We are the one of the best regarded, largest seminar companies specializing in personal and professional development. And we bring together lots of remarkable people who do remarkable things. Brian Tracy, a lot of you know, as America's top sales trainer. If you don't know Dennis Waitley, I've been listening to his audio since I was like 18 years old. He's changed my life. Alex Stern is the founder of Constant Contact. Some of you use Constant Contact. Alec is a remarkable innovator. Frank Shankwitz is the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. And if you haven't seen it, go and watch on Netflix the movie Wishman. And it's a movie about his life. Very inspiring. And then that handsome guy in the bottom there, the red star, that's me. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is sharing the stage with people who help entrepreneurs and sales professionals to win big, to break through mental barriers and succeed. Now, this is my favorite guy. We've already introduced some of you to him earlier on. That's Woody. He's my 13-year-old Labradoodle. And as those of you on this call know how important your dogs are to you, Woody is super important to me, and he's taught me a lot of valuable lessons about life. And so maybe we'll give you a chance to say hi to him again at the very end. So moving on. Before we get into content, I always play this game because I think it's an eye-opener, and I think it's fun, and it does do what we call pattern interrupt. So the picture in the background is Albert Einstein, and the numbers up there are meant to be added together. 950 plus 50 is 1,000, and then if you were to ask what an additional 40 brings you to what? 1,040. Plus another 1,000, that should be 2,040. Plus 30. You should be up to 2,070 by now, plus another 1,000, that should bring you to 3,070, plus 20, 3,090, plus 1,000, 4,090, plus 10. Now, raise your hand if you said 5,000. Well, the answer is 4,100. 4,090 plus 10. Now, 99 people out of 100 are going to say 5,000 because this particular exercise takes you through an interesting psychological journey that leads to a conclusion that's incorrect. And it's something that happens to all of us all through our lives. We're constantly being in pattern to believe certain things about what's possible, or to see opportunities or not see opportunities based on the patterns that we're living with inside of our minds. And as long as we accept those patterns as being real or true, we are essentially locked out of the choice of being more successful than we already are. And so what highly successful people do, and this is what today's seminar is about, what highly successful people do is first and foremost, they recognize that their minds have these patterns, and that left to their own devices, they're likely to flatten out the growth curve. And particularly at times like these that we're in right now, if we're in a pandemic and we're locked at home, and the logical conclusion is 5,000. The logical conclusion is I can't succeed. When that's not true, it really doesn't add up. So what we're going to talk about today are the 5 rules, or what we call habitudes. Habitude is a word that Jim Rohn made up for us. Jim Rohn, if you those of you who don't know him, was Tony Robbins' mentor and another great thinker and business success coach and author. And some of you probably know Jim Rohn. He shared the name Habitude with us. He said, "Your habits and your attitudes are your habitudes, right? Your habits and your attitudes determine your attitudes and your altitude, right? Your altitude and your aptitude." So what we say is that highly successful people operate based on the five principles or habitudes that we're going to go over right now in order to continuously succeed regardless of the externals, regardless of the pandemic, regardless of the quarantine, regardless of their feelings or emotions. And so if we can help by the end of this talk, give you a few strategies and principles that will get you where you need to go, I would count myself successful. I hope you would too. So again, as we move forward, little silent thank you to Michael and to Laura for making this happen. And the first principle I want to share with you is this one we call Make Your Bed. Now, there's a book called Make Your Bed. Some of you are familiar with it. I wrote about it in my first book on hypnosis, and that is that people who start their day by doing these simple rituals like making their bed are beginning to structure their lives in a sense of discipline and order from the very beginning. And what we know is, and this was Darren Hardy from Success Magazine, a friend of ours and one of our speakers, will say, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you're kind of starting your day in disarray, there's a good likelihood that your day will continue in disarray. And that disarray will translate into how effective you are in accomplishing whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. My phone calls, am I making my phone calls to the best of my ability? Am I marketing as well as I can? Am I planning my time as well as I can? And we find that the people who have the most rituals, I make my bed, I get dressed, I go out, I take my dog for a walk, I brush my teeth. The more rituals you have, the more likely you are to be successful, because you begin to build some structure into your life. And that structure plays out in a variety of ways under the umbrella of what we call the law of impeccability. Right? Being impeccable. Like here I am, I'm talking to you right now. I'm wearing a nice shirt, and I could get away with not wearing any pants right now, right? And so could you, but I'm wearing pants. Trust me. And the whole idea is that we want to be the best we can be, even when nobody's looking. And are you being that way? Are you structuring your life that way? Because it shows up in a variety of ways, and of all the ways in which it shows up, it's in how you use your time. You might have noticed I created a program called Procrastination Annihilation, and great program. More people would have bought it, but they didn't get around to it. What we find is that that if you structure your time well under this law of impeccability, then you get a lot more done. And so I'm going to share with you two of the strategies that we teach in our programs, in our seminars, in my one-on-one work with people, and when I coach individuals. One of the very first things I do is I insist that they learn and then execute on the idea of time blocking. Time blocking. Now, some of you know what I mean by time blocking. It essentially means you've got a visual representation of your day, and you're carving out chunks of day, and you're writing down, you're basically writing a block of time, and you're coloring it in, and that time is only used for that one activity. So maybe from 9 to 11, you're prospecting, and from 11 to 12, you're returning phone calls. And each chunk of the day has been blocked off. Even if a part of your day is just for screwing around, you've got a block for screwing around. But you change your thinking so that your day is literally structured in your mind, and it's a wonderful remedy for this meandering that we usually do, and for being less effective, and also for sort of ripping ourselves off in our leisure time. Because if you're not structuring your time and then you're having leisure time, you might be having this voice in your head that says, I should be working. You know what I'm talking about, right? This should. But if you've structured your time, then you know when you should or shouldn't be working, and so you're a lot more relaxed. So time blocking. Now, here's an interesting fact that most of you are unaware of, unless you've been doing the reading on the neurology around this, but it turns out that if you were to break your attention span in order to take a quick, let's say, phone call, a quick distraction. So now it's 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock and it's prospecting time, during which you should only be prospecting. But if you were to take that quick phone call, turns out that you will not be back to full efficiency for 20 to 30 more minutes. It takes 20 to 30 minutes for your nervous system to return from the distraction, from the disruption of that distraction. So it just doesn't pay. You've got to stay focused. And how do you do that if you are the kind of person who feels like you've got to always be available? Well, how you do it is you use your voicemail more effectively, right? A lot of realtors, in particular, we work with lots of realtors who feel like they've got to always have the phone immediately available because God forbid that, the phone rings and it's the $1 million call, right? So they end up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars every day and week and month because they're busy distracting themselves and doing a less than efficient job in the hopes that one day it's going to be that $1 million call. And they're probably not going to feel that one very well either. So instead, what we do is we encourage you to use your voicemail. I always ask people, when was the last time you changed your voicemail message? And people say, I don't know, what year is it? Well, you could change your voicemail every day. You could change it a couple times a day, right? And that's perfectly plausible. You could say, hi, this is Steve. Don't say you're Steve if you're not. Hey, this is Steve. I'm working on a project from 11 to 1. I'll be returning phone calls at 1 o'clock. Expect a call from me between 1 and 2. And people are very respectful of that. They appreciate that. And it's actually it's one of the subconscious messages that you send to your clients and prospects that says, this is somebody who's not only caring enough to tell me when they're available, but also structured enough to know when they're available. So it's a really useful tool. Hi, I'm going to be available at such and such a time. I'll get back to you then. That brings me to the second strategy that I want to talk about, which is what I call limit setting, setting limits. Very interesting. How many of you know somebody who talks too much? We all do. And often when we get a phone call from that person, in the old days, we would pick up the phone and we'd be stuck on the phone. Now, if you're at least doing what I'm saying and you're not calling them right back, at least you have some control over it. You're not being ambushed by them. But now the phone rang and you've got to call that person back. The question is, do you call them back? I've only got an hour to call people back and I've got, 10 phone calls to return. I've only got 5 minutes per person or 6 minutes per person. How am I going to call this person back? Well, here's what you need to do. You need to call them back. You need to call them back. You can't get away with putting them off just because you're afraid they're going to dominate your time, because that lacks integrity and people read that integrity, right? So you need to live your life with integrity. Nor can you wait until the end. You see a lot of people say, I'll call everybody else first and then I'll wait and I'll call them back when I've gotten back to everybody else first. You don't do that because of Brian Tracy's admonition. He wrote a book called Eat That Frog. You know that one, Eat That Frog? It's based on Mark Twain's quote. Mark Twain said, every morning when you wake up, now that's what he sounded like. Nobody knows, nobody recorded his voice, but Mark Twain said, every morning when you wake up, eat a live frog, and nothing worse will happen for the rest of the day. And the point is, get the worst, hardest, most objectionable thing out of the way first. You'll be much more efficient for it. So you may call that person back first, but you've got to use this technique that's going to keep you from being dominated by their time. You want to be the master of your time, don't you? Yeah. So here's how you do it. It's a 3-step process. I call it HPLT. So if you're taking notes, HPLT stands for high presence, low time. High presence, low time. High presence means you're going to be very present, very focused, very attentive when you call somebody back. You've got to have lots of attention, because guess what, guys? If you're trying to be on the phone with somebody while you're doing something else in order to multitask because you know this person is dominating your time, you're shooting yourself in the foot in a variety of ways. First of all, that person feels it. They know when you're not paying attention. Don't you know when somebody's not paying full attention to you? You do, and so do they. Secondly, because people are hungry for your time and your attention, more your attention than your time, if you're not giving them your undivided attention, they sense it, and so they talk more. And so you end up being stuck in a conversation longer than you want to be rather than shorter. So that business of trying to act like you're too busy for them, it actually backfires, and it makes you kind of look like a jerk. So HPLT is a 3-step process. So first, you know how much time you've got available. So let's say I've got 5 minutes left to have a conversation with each of the people I'm calling back. Let's say Karen is one of the people I'm calling back. I would follow these 3 steps. The first thing I would do is I'd call Karen. The first thing I would do, step 1, is called acknowledge. I would acknowledge Karen for having called me. I would say, hey, Karen, thanks for calling earlier. Sorry I couldn't take your call then, but now is the time I'm returning calls, right? So I wanted to get back to you. So you make that person feel good about calling them back, step 1. Step 2, limit setting. You set the limit right at the very beginning of the conversation. You say, hey, Karen, listen, I've literally only got 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is right now, but whatever it is, you tell them right up front, hey, listen, I've only got 3 minutes right now. Step 3, you ask the question, is that enough time for what you need? You see, if you don't ask that question, then you sound like a jerk. Hey, Karen, I've only got 3 minutes. Well, that sounds pretty gross. But if you say, hey, Karen, listen, thanks so much for calling. Listen, I've only got 3 minutes right now. Is that enough time for what you need right now? Well, then she might say, no, I need more time. And then I just say, great, let's use this 3 minutes to block the time you need. And then I put it on the calendar. And now she's got an opportunity to talk to me at a time that I'm available for what she needs. Or she might say, no, 3 minutes is enough. And then I say, great, I'm closing my door, I'm closing my computer, and you've got my undivided attention. Hugely powerful. Tell people that you're giving them your undivided attention, declare it, and then live into it. And you will be surprised at the power that provides you. Now, all of that, as we said, is the first law, right? It's the law of impeccability. I'm being impeccable with my time. I'm being impeccable with my surroundings. I'm being impeccable with the relationships I'm beginning to form. Let's go on to step 2, which is paint your picture. Painting your picture is a technique that you've heard about in a variety of different ways. It's something that very successful people do. And if you want to be very successful, you have to do it. You can't get away with not doing this. It's not just a nice idea, it's necessary. It basically means that you are dedicating a period of every day to envisioning the future you want to create. You've got to do it. You've got to have some way of envisioning the future that you're creating for yourself. What we often have people do is to record their voice on their phone, and in 2 to 3 minutes to describe the perfect life that they're going to have, but to describe it as if it's already happened. It's April 17th, 2021. I'm sitting on my porch looking out over my beautiful lawn and smelling the grass and smelling the flowers and watching my kids playing in the pool and hearing the splashing of the water and hearing the sizzling of the barbecue and feeling such a sense of gratitude for having done so well over this last year that I'm able to enjoy and appreciate the life that I'm living right now. And if you were to make a video, an audio recording of something like that and listen to it every day, your subconscious mind would continue to drive you toward that. It's the law of vision. We attempt to match the vision we create for ourselves. And so if you don't paint your picture, what you're doing is you're beginning to recreate whatever it is that you are seeing. And if you're only seeing what's going on right now, that means you're buried in the crisis, you're buried in the negativity, you're buried in the shortfall of your life. What's happening is you're churning yourself, and your mental architecture is such that all you're doing is creating more of the same. And I know you've seen that with other people who just complain, and then they have more to complain about, because we are gravitating toward that which we think and feel and see. So you've got to create your vision. You've got to operate based on the law of vision. And the most effective way to do that is by setting goals. Now, what very successful people, we used to work with the Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan used to say he'd been writing his goals down since he was 5 years old. Yeah, he's doing okay, right? You got to write your goals down. They've got to be specific. They've got to have a specific deadline as well. So I want to achieve this by this period of time. If you haven't done that, I would recommend that you make a note to yourself right now to do it just as soon as you get off the phone. Find a few goals for yourself, things that you can move towards. And here are a couple of what I would call inside tips to be more successful with goal setting. And I've got a list of about a dozen of these that if we end up working together, I'll be sharing more of these. But for now, one of them is have an accountability partner. Have at least one person to whom you can share your goals and share your strategy to achieve those goals, so that you could get on the phone with those people every now and then and say, how's it coming so far? Pretty well. Oh, I did what I said I was going to do. Awesome. Good for you, right? So people who are moving you in the direction that you want to move in, those are your accountability partners. The law of accountability is a good partner for the law of vision. Second thing is make sure your goals are extremely specific. Round numbers don't work as well as non-round numbers. You're better off saying, I would like to make $197,532 this year than saying I want to make 200,000. Even though 200,000 is a bigger number, 197,532 is a very specific number, and it makes your subconscious mind move in that direction. The subconscious does not resonate with round numbers because they don't occur in nature. When was the last time that you pumped your gas and without pre-setting the stop point, it clicked off and you looked at the pump and it was exactly $10? Not $9.99, exactly 10. Now, you probably ran home and told your husband or your wife because it's such a rarity. So don't set a goal that's a rare number. Set a goal that sounds like a plausible number, and your subconscious mind will drive you more effectively towards it. It's a fascinating process. And the last inside tip, so to speak, in the area of goal setting that I'll share with you before we move on to the next principle, has to do with what Simon Sinek calls the power of why, right? We all want to have a why, a reason to move toward our goal. Because if you don't have a reason to achieve that goal, you're going to stop as soon as you hit the obstacles. But if you have a compelling reason, you're more likely to move towards it. What I want to share is what I call non-selfish or giving goals. Non-selfish or giving goals. A goal for how much you're going to give or what kind of an impact you're going to make. How are you going to help somebody else other than yourself? If you put that into your mental architecture so that when you've got a goal, you say, for example, when I achieve $197,532, I'm going to be able to give $19,732 to charity. I'm going to be able to build wells in Africa. I'm going to be able to help build that new community center in my community. I'm going to be able to help my kid get through college without like being in crippling debt. And when you are envisioning something that has an impact on somebody other than yourself, you're much more likely to move toward that goal. It's inevitable that you'll stay more focused on something when it helps other people, because we are by nature giving people. I think probably I would imagine everybody on this call is, and that it behooves us to try to do some good in the world, to make a difference. And so you'll be more motivated toward your goal if you try to make a difference. All right. Okay, so the third principle is called remove your walls. This is my favorite one to discuss because it is the one that we discuss the least and the one that has the biggest impact. If you are not aware, well, let's ask it as a question. How many of you are aware that you are your own worst enemy? Right on. Yep. We are, right? We are our own worst enemy. We sabotage ourselves constantly. We have these lofty goals and hopes and dreams, and then we start moving towards them. And at some point along the way, something happens. Something happens where suddenly we're no longer moving toward that goal anymore. And we don't know why, right? It's something, it seems to be a mystery. It's like there's this mysterious land that we move into. And somehow what used to feel like a powerful experience where we're passionate and joyful about going there, suddenly it's depressing, it's frustrating, it's irritating, we're afraid, we're overwhelmed, we're bored, or we suddenly get this feeling of blasé apathy. Oh, I didn't really want that anyway. How did that happen? How did we end up from here to there? Well, that's what I've spent my life studying. That's my area of expertise, is that there is actually something going on in your nervous system, in that mysterious black box where you go in enthusiastic and come out, completely stopped. And I call that area, that black box area, I call that your invisible walls. Your invisible walls. They are comprised of your subconscious belief systems and assumptions and values. And when things bump up against those, when you bump up against your own self-limiting beliefs, what you think you deserve, what you believe you're capable of, suddenly there's an emotional reaction. And because it's all happening below the surface, it's all happening subconsciously, you have no power over it. And you try to be powerful, you try to work harder. I'm going to push myself through this thing. But you see, force doesn't work. Force and effort don't take you through that land of darkness, those invisible walls. The only thing that does is to increase your level of self-awareness so that the voices in your head, those voices, that black area is no longer black. That suddenly you can see all of these exerting influences on you. It's like, oh, the reason I'm stopping myself is because some part of me feels like I don't deserve it. That's a lot different from thinking you don't deserve it. See, there's a difference between thinking and watching yourself think, right? There's a difference between thinking and watching yourself think. And when you get to a place of detachment where you can watch yourself think, then these voices no longer have power over you, and you find yourself able to continue on your journey towards success. Again, very important during times of stress and crisis, like the pandemic, because it's so easy to make an excuse about how you're not getting where you want to go, because anybody in the world with any, awareness would say, well, you're right. I mean, you can't make a living now. Of course you can't. This is a terrible time. Nobody can make a living now. If you try, you're an idiot. If you try, you're insensitive to the suffering around you. It's like this, but the reality is it's just you doing it to yourself. The solution is to apply the law of focus. The law of focus says that he who or she who focuses more wins. Now, every one of us have our own degree of capacity for focus. For some of us, our focus is like, we have ADD, or we've got ADOS. ADOS? That's attention deficit. Oh, shiny. That's where you have no capacity to keep your mind focused on one thing. And then there are people who are laser focused, and those are the people who end up becoming like the corporate giants, the millionaires and the billionaires, because they kept themselves laser focused on a principle, on a practice, on a set of actions, despite anything else going on around them. Now, that capacity to focus, that's something that most of us aren't born with. It's something that we've got to cultivate. Because what happens when you develop that kind of focus is that the capacity to be here allows all those other voices to be there. Suddenly, you're no longer at the effect of those voices in your head because they're just background. You begin to realize you are not the voices in your head. It's a very powerful transformation. You become what we call the witness. You become the witness to the stuff in your head that used to be stopping you, and now it's just stuff in your head. And in order to get to a place of focus where you experience what I'm talking about right now, because it's hard to experience until you've experienced it, you've got to do something that sharpens your focus. Now, I could tell you should be meditating, and I think you should, because meditation is amazing and powerful, and it works. But because a lot of people won't do it, I'm going to teach you something you could do right now, something you could start doing today that'll transform your capacity to focus. And I call it cherish the mundane. Cherish the mundane. So what's mundane? Mundane is, doing the laundry, sweeping the floor, washing the dishes. Let's talk about that. When you wash the dishes, chances are you're washing the dishes, but you're also watching TV, you're on the phone, you're yelling at your kids, you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner. There's a lot of stuff going on that's not washing your dishes while you're washing your dishes. So the technique, cherish the mundane, is this. It's washing this dish is like bathing a cherished child. The mundane is sacred. And so I wash each dish as if it is my child. I wash it with complete focus and reverence and attention and love. And then I finish that dish and I put it down and I pick up the next dish. And I do the same thing. If my mind wanders, I say, there's a thought. Let me get back to what I'm doing. And I bring my mind back to the task at hand. And the reason it's so powerful, even though it sounds a little silly, and I admit that, is that you're practicing strengthening your focus muscles. You're practicing the art of bringing your attention into the moment. And if you start doing that, and here's my promise to you, do it for a week. Tell me what happens. I would venture to guess that if you do this for a week, you'll find that things don't make you angry as easily. Things don't depress you as easily. You'll find humor in things that you used to find humor in. There's all sorts of changes that are going to happen. You're going to feel this sense of freedom inside, just because what used to be a wall is now just a voice. And now you've got some perspective, the same way that a great comedian would observe something that's a foible of human nature and laugh at it rather than being buried by it. You could become the Jerry Seinfeld of your business. It's a good place to go. Is that cool? Do you find that interesting? It's a topic that I could talk about for an hour, but I want to continue on through these principles. So let me move on to the next principle with you. And by the way, I am mindful that I've seen a number of people who are leaving comments. I think we're up to 14 comments. I can't see your comments, so please forgive me for not responding to them yet, but we'll go back and look at those later. And I do thank you for interacting with me in that way. And again, if there's a pressing question, you want to jump in, unmute yourself and ask the question. Otherwise, let's go on to our next principle. It's called sharpen your saw. Very important principle. It's called the law of balance. Most of us are out of balance. I think you could probably agree with that. We're out of balance in a variety of ways. Sometimes we're so caught up in trying to do our jobs that we can't even stop thinking about it when we go home. And we're trying to be with our families, but we can't be with our families because our heads are elsewhere. Or we're at work thinking about what happened at home and our heads are elsewhere. And so we're out of balance in that way. We're also out of balance because to a large extent, most people who are trying to be successful are spending a lot of their time working in their business, but not on their business. Meaning that they're so busy putting out fires and dealing with the day-to-day minutia of what has to happen that their inbox keeps filling up and they keep doing stuff in this sort of frantic way, thinking that maybe if I do it fast enough and hard enough, by the end of today, that inbox will be empty. And it never is, right? So they essentially become like hamsters on a wheel. Running as fast as I can, hoping that if I can outrun the wheel. And you can't outrun the wheel, guys. Get that. You can't outrun the wheel, but here's what you can do. You can carve out a chunk of your day for working on your business, not in your business. On your business means I'm going to take some time to figure out how can I be more effective? How can I maybe learn some of the new tools that are available that will allow me to do what I already do in a more efficient way? How can I learn a little bit more about the latest trends in my business so that I can be more knowledgeable and uh, make a bigger contribution to others, right? How can I become a better version of myself? Which I think is the most important. How can I be a better version of myself? And how can I make a point of taking time to be a better version of myself? Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than you work on your business. He said, if you work on your business, you'll make a living. But if you work on yourself, you'll make a fortune. It's a brilliant quote. If you work on yourself, you make a living. If you work on your business, I'm sorry, if you work on your business, you'll make a living. If you work on yourself, you'll make a fortune. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. You've got to take time away from the constant doing to kind of get that 30,000 foot view of yourself. Am I out of balance? Am I, working too hard for my own good? Am I putting out a desperate vibe? If I'm putting out a desperate vibe, I don't care how hard I work, nobody's buying from me. So I've really got to I've got to be willing to step away from the day-to-day activities. I've got to read books. I've got to attend seminars. I've got to do masterminds. I've got to, do some personal development work. I've got to make a gratitude journal. Whatever it is, I can't always be doing my job. I've got to balance it with improving myself and improving my skills. Incidentally, the concept "sharpen your saw" comes from the book "7 Habits of Highly Effective People," Stephen Covey. It's the seventh habit. It's based on a story that Abraham Lincoln used to tell about a couple of lumberjacks who were having a contest to see who could cut more wood in a given period of time. And they were up on stage. So one of the lumberjacks is cutting, and the other one cuts, and then he leaves the stage for a few minutes. And then he comes back and he goes back, cut, and then he leaves the stage for a few minutes. And he keeps doing that. And at the end of the contest, that guy wins the contest. So the other guy says, how did you win the contest? You kept taking a break. The guy says, I wasn't taking a break. I was sharpening my saw. Isn't that awesome? Take time to sharpen your saw. Let's move on to the fifth principle. Fifth principle is be the Ferrari. What do I mean by that? Well, guys, there was a time in our history back during the recession when the American car companies were losing their shirts, when things were really, really bad, right? You probably remember that. And they were laying people off and they were threatening to go bankrupt. And in the meantime, Ferrari was having a record year. Why? Because they had operated based on the law of distinction. They had distinguished themselves. They knew who they were. They knew what they had to sell. They knew who their market was. And they knew how to present themselves to that market. And so they became distinctive. And so they attracted those people who could afford their product. So my question to you is, how have you distinguished yourself? Are you distinctive to your market? Do you know who your market is? And most importantly, have you presented yourself to your market in a way that makes you extremely likable and trustworthy? Do you come across as competent? Do you come across as generous? Right? Now, when you meet people, that's one way that you get to do this, because we all know what a first impression is. You know how long it takes to make a first impression? 3 to 5 seconds. That's it, 3 to 5 seconds, and boom. And then how long does it take to reverse a first impression? Sometimes you never can. So you've got to make a good first impression. How do you do that? Well, it's how you carry yourself, how you look. It's also your energy, right? What kind of energy am I putting out? Am I focused? Am I present? Am I smiling? Am I showing that I care, right? So that's all well and good. And do I remember your name? That's another good one. One of the techniques I teach in my programs is remembering people's names. You want to learn how to remember 200 people's names? I'll teach you. I'll show you that. It's pretty cool. And it will change your life because people really respect that. But because we're in a virtual world right now, because we're living home, let's talk about what you can do even before you meet people belly to belly, face to face. What can you do right now that's going to start creating the brand recognition of you? The Karen brand, the Shannon brand, right? The Michael brand. How do you create that brand? How do you show up in such a way that people already want to do business with you? Because this is such a powerful time for you, right? You've got the time to do what I'm about to tell you. Might as well do it now so that when people are finally out there doing business in real life, you've already established such an air of authority and an air of gratitude. You know, you're the person people are going to want to do business with. That's what you want to be. You don't want to just be prospecting, going out there, picking up the phone, beating the pavement. You want people to find you. You have to do that by creating authority. And how do you do that? You do that by providing consistent, there's 4 words, right? Consistent content, no sales pitch. Sales pitch might be 2 words, so maybe 5 words. Consistent content, no sales pitch. You've got to be putting out content. You've got to be putting out information in a way that doesn't sound like a sales pitch. You could be using a lot of the tools. Remember when we talked about sharpen your saw? You could be learning about the tools that are at your disposal right now, so that if you wanted to, you could sit down right now, today, after we finish this call, and make 10 little 1-minute videos that show 10 little things about what people need to know about your business. Not your business specifically, about the industry that you work in. You know, every one of us has a lot of knowledge within our industry that a lot of people don't have. You could teach people what these certain terms mean in the business that you're in. Or how to look for the best such and such, or maybe just something nice, maybe a funny story that you heard. But you want to give content in the form of video. Now you could do it. You could write articles. That's fine. But you know that people will watch a video 50 times more than they'll read an article. So now a lot of people will say, "Well, I don't want to make videos because I don't like what I look like." You've heard that, right? I don't like what I look like on video, so I don't want to make videos. I've got a perfect solution. Don't watch the freaking thing. Right? It's not for you, it's for everybody else. So it doesn't matter if you don't think you look good in the video. That's not what people are looking for. They're looking for your essence, and they're going to get it from the video. So all you need is a phone and an arm, and you just sit there with your phone and you make little videos. And then you upload them to your YouTube channel. Now, you probably don't have a YouTube channel, but you know how easy it is to get one of those? If you don't know how to do it, find a 12-year-old kid. They'll do it for you. Quick, simple, easy. Right? Get a YouTube channel. Take all the videos that you're making and upload them to your YouTube channel. Now you've got links, and you can put those links out there. Again, there's a strategy. We'll teach you the strategy later. The point is you're getting in the habit pattern, getting into the habit of putting out content. That's step 1. Step 2 is once you get comfortable with video, once you get comfortable with you in front of a video, now you have the capacity to use video for testimonials. And you can get in touch with some of your favorite clients and say, you know what, I'm making a website, I'm making a YouTube channel, I'm asking people if they'd say a few nice words about the work I do. Would you mind giving me a quick video testimonial? Now, by the way, if people like you, they're going to do it, right? And if you start doing this out in the real world, when the time comes, do it right at the point when somebody has done business with you and they love you. Because if they love you and they appreciate you, they're going to do a video, because the law of reciprocity, right? If I do something nice for you, you're going to want to do something nice for me. So get over your concern that people are going to find that offensive. They won't. They'll actually appreciate it. So that's step 2, right? So step 1, you make videos. Step 2, you ask for videos. And now step 3. Step 3 is one of my favorite strategies, tools, techniques in the world. I think you'll really appreciate it, and it's something you can start doing right now while you're home. In fact, this is a great project for you right now. How many of you, by a show of hands, have clients? Hopefully everybody, right? How many have clients you like? Hopefully the same hands go up, right? Now, how many of you have a client you like who is in a business that you like or respect? They're doing a business, and you'd be willing to say something nice about them. Okay. Here's what I would do. I would go ahead if I were you. And as soon as you get off the phone, I would do this. I'd make a list of 10 people that you like, who are in a business that you like. And I would take out my phone, and I would say something like, for me, I would do it like this. I would say, hi guys, this is Dr. Steve, best-selling author and international speaker. But I'm not here to talk to you about me today. I'm here to talk to you about Michael and Laura from the Chamber of Commerce, because I had an opportunity to work with them, and they put on a program where a lot of people came to learn, and they showed such caring for their people. And they've got such a wonderful organization. So I would highly recommend that if you get the opportunity, and if you're in the area, definitely join that chamber. But even if you're not in the area, if you want to know somebody who's influential in the area, give them a call, because they're awesome, right? Now, if I made that little video on my phone, the next thing I would do with it is I would upload it to my YouTube channel. In other words, I wouldn't just send it from my phone off to Michael and Laura. I would upload it to my YouTube channel. And then I would take the link And I would send the link to Laura or Michael in an email. I'd say, hey, Michael, hey, Laura, how you doing? Listen, thanks so much for working with me the other day. I wanted to do you a little solid here. Here's a video about how I feel about you guys. Feel free to use it however you like. Now, how are they going to feel about me when they receive that video? Pretty good, right? And what are they going to do with that video? They're going to share it with everybody, right? They're going to send it to all of you, and then you're going to share it with everybody. And now thousands of people are seeing this great video about how awesome you are. All right? Now, here's the interesting kicker. When people watch the video, when they click the link and watch the video about how awesome you are, where are they seeing that video? In this case, on my YouTube channel. And that means I've just got thousands of people coming to my page. You want to get thousands of people coming to your page and learning more about you? That's how you do it. Thousands of people are going to find out about you, and they're going to see you as a nice person who cares enough to do something special. And it is a nice gesture, and it is doing something special, and it has the side benefit of being very good at helping you get more visibility. So I'm going to recommend you take 10 people, make a little video about them, put it on your YouTube channel, send a link to that person saying, hey, I made you this little video. Use it as you see fit. They'll post it. They'll put it out there. People will click it, and you'll get traffic. It's amazing. Cool? Cool. Got a high five? Good idea, right? Okay. Yeah. All right. So I do have one more principle here as kind of a bonus principle I'll share with you. This is, make it fun. It's the law of state. Tony Robbins talks about state of mind, mood, right? If you change your state, you change your fate. Right? If you could keep yourself in a good mood, it's going to pay dividends. People are going to want to be around you. They're going to be drawn to you. So you've got to be positive. And the problem, of course, is there's a lot of negativity happening all around us. And so it's very easy to fall into a negative state. Some of us are cloistered at home with, like, how many of you are familiar with negativity? You see negativity around you, right? How many of you live with somebody who's negative? No, don't raise your hand. But, how many of you know somebody who lights up a room when they leave? Right? And then when they come back in, the lights flicker a little bit, right? So we need to protect ourselves. We need to guard ourselves against negativity. So Earl Nightingale used to say there are 4 things you must jealously guard if you want to maintain a positive attitude. He said, number 1, what are you reading, right? I've got a reading list of great books. You're welcome to ask me about them, and we could provide you with some good reading materials. But, I've written some good self-help books. I've got lots of friends who've written great self-help books. I've got friends who are, the people that you've heard about, who've written those books. And then there are thousands of others, right? And I can name several of them and send you the lists. But the point is, read good material. Don't just be reading junky novels. I mean, it's okay if you want to do that, but make sure that you're feeding yourself with something that's going to continue to help you maintain a positive attitude. Secondly, what are you watching? Are you watching TED Talks, which are amazing, right? They'll inspire you. In a moment, I've got a program to offer you that includes some really wonderful speeches. Or are you, watching Real Housewives? How are you spending your time, right? So what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to, right? That's the third one. What are you listening to? If all you're doing is listening to bad news and, seeing how the death toll is climbing, you're probably not doing yourself any great service. And number 4, who are you surrounding yourself with, right? Who are you surrounding yourself with? And nowadays it's nobody or, only my family. But Dan Clark, the author of Soul Food, he's also the inspiration for Chicken Soup for the Soul. He's one of our speakers. Dan says, we are the average of the 5 people we spend most of our time with. If you hang out with 5 depressed people, you're going to be the 6th. So don't let that happen. So let's look back over what we've been able to accomplish here today. We've talked about goal achievement and giving you some tips and strategies for that. Can you see how being goal-centered might help you to stay motivated? And maybe give you the idea of creating greater strategies. Time management, we talked about how important it is to reclaim your time, and I've given you a couple of skills to do that. And imagine what it's going to be like when you don't have to dread the phone call from that person who takes up all your time, how much more mastery you'll feel, and how much more relaxed and stress-free you'll feel, right? That's important. Number 3 is building better relationships. If you start using some of the tools and techniques and strategies we've talked about, you can't help but have people appreciate it because you're showing care, you're showing commitment, and you're also showing that you respect your own time, and then you will respect their time. And there's something that's very comforting about that. Prospecting and branding, prospecting being what you're doing outwardly, but branding being what you're doing to get people to come to you, right? You want to be the, you know, I don't know, the Elton John of your industry. You want people to know who you are. If you're going to have a concert, everybody's coming no matter what. You don't have to send out an email about it. People already know who you are because you've been able to put out content on a regular basis. And then we talked about managing your mindset. And these are all important strategies that matter so much. And here's a caveat, right? We say if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten, right? That's what Henry Ford said. It was Joe Charbonneau who said, Joe Charbonneau said, information without implementation leads to depression. Information without implementation leads to depression, which is why I encourage you to circle the things you're going to actually do after we get off this call, because it will, you know, even if you do one or two things, it'll massively increase the value of the time we've spent together. And my favorite quote, it comes from Einstein, who said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. By that standard, how many of you are insane? Right. I know we're all a little crazy. So anyway, as I told you at the beginning, I'm going to share with you a set of resources that I've put together for you because I want to help support you in following up on the stuff I taught you today. So if you do want to follow up and maybe even take it to the next level, I've got a program I call the Habitude Warrior Comprehensive Success Kit. Now, again, Habitude Warrior is the conference company that I work with. And we've got a lot of materials. And what we did was we tried to put together a package of materials and make them affordable because, you know, right now is a good time for that. Right now is a time when I think every one of us can benefit from changing our mindset and maybe learning some new strategies and tools. So this program is going to include what we're calling the School of the Unstoppable. And what we did was we went out, we asked a dozen of our top authors, speaker, thought leaders, if they'd be willing to dedicate an hour of their time to you. And so you're going to be able to get on the phone and really visit with some remarkable people like Sharon Lechter, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kevin Harrington, the inventor of one of the first guys from Shark Tank, the inventor of the infomercial, Alex Stern, the founder of Constant Contact, just remarkable people who have a lot to say about how to be successful even during difficult times. And so you'll get to really, from the horse's mouth, even ask questions. But we really feel, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I really feel that the time spent with people who are of that ilk is time well spent. And so we wanted to put these people in front of you, and they understand what we're all going through, and so they're there for you. We also have a program which is the Millionaire Mentor Legends program. It's basically an archive of over 90 of our videos from 90 different high-end speakers. And so some of you might know Les Brown or Brian Tracy, America's top sales trainer. My favorite is Dan Clark, the inspiration for Chicken Soup for the Soul. I'll be one of the speakers on this as well. So there's a lot of really cool people in that, and you'll have access. What I would recommend you do is you listen to one of those a day. You know, to pick a time of day when you're likely to like dip, and just watch a 20-minute video that'll really kind of inspire and motivate you. So that's the second part. And speaking of Brian Tracy, years ago, he created the Success Mastery Academy, which is a wonderful, wonderful program where it's like, you remember the old days you used to listen to cassette tapes, motivational cassette tapes? That's what this is. So it's not cassette anymore, obviously. It's online. It went cassette, then it went CD, and now it's 12 hours of training. You listen to it in the car, you listen to it at home, you listen to it over and over again, but it really outlines the principles and the habits of thinking that will get you on the success path. And it's a really, really cool program. Then I've also created, because my background, I'm a hypnotist. I've done hypnotherapy for years. And I made a series of 25 recordings, and they're very short, like 10 minutes. They're designed so you listen to one every night. Or actually, you listen to one, and then you listen to that same one every night for a week, and then the next week you do another one. But the idea is you want to start implanting positive messages into your subconscious mind. It's a very powerful tool and strategy. And then we also have this thing. I'm almost reluctant to say it because I don't want to make it sound like this is something you're definitely be able to benefit from, but maybe you will. So I threw it in anyway. And that is, we do have a live conference. It's a wonderful conference. And we, lots and lots of people go to this conference, pay like hundreds of dollars to be there. And because we don't know when our next one's going to be, we just decided we're going to throw in a ticket. You could have the ticket. And when we finally get back on the air, we're going to be, you can use that ticket. So it's just kind of that part's the gamble in here, right? But it's a pretty generous opportunity if you decide to use it. And what we did was, now this, I'm going to skip past this because this is just testimonial stuff about the program. But here, I will tell you in all honesty that these programs, if you were to add up the true value of all those programs, you're definitely looking in the thousands of dollars. And what we typically do is we typically package things. You know how that works? You create a package. And I don't like to sound like an infomercial dude, but we would usually package something like that, not counting the conference, for about $500 for all those materials. But I'm not going to do that here. What we're going to do is we created what we're calling the Compassionate COVID discount. And so all that stuff we're making available for $149, $4 of which goes to the Salvation Army, because we're trying to support their efforts to help us through this difficult time. Now, I know it sounds a little, those things to me, I don't know about you, always sound a little hokey. It's like, well, yeah, I'm getting thousands of dollars of stuff for $149. Let me tell you why we're doing it. First of all, people just can't afford a lot of money right now. So I really feel like we're trying to be compassionate about that. Second of all, maybe the bigger reason is we want to be your training company. We want you guys to come to us to learn more from us and maybe attend future conferences with us and really become part of our family. And so my view is that if you spend $149 and you get a ton of value, you're going to want to do business with us. And, eventually this whole thing is going to be over and people are going to be able to afford the regular price, and they'll pay, significantly more for this all when the time comes. But for now, you get to benefit from that, right? So that's just the way we're doing that. And so that's the deal. We keep that open for a couple hours after these programs. So I'm going to show you how to get it if you'd like. Right now, what you're going to do is you're going to go to this website, HabitudeWarriorSuccessKit.com. And what I'll do is I'll get out of full screen mode here. And I'm just going to put that down here. Habitude, so you don't have to type it yourself. HabitudeWarriorSuccessKit.com. Now, here, let me explain what's going to happen. If you pop over there, and this is for the next couple hours, you're welcome to do this in the next couple hours. Then what you'll find is it's going to be listed at $497 because that's what it usually is. But you're going to put in a code. So this is what you're going to put in. Ready? Here we go. You should be looking at the chat box, and 70 off, 70 OFF. If you put in 70 off in the coupon window, you know what I mean? Then it'll instantly drop it from $497 right down to $149. And then you just do whatever you do to get the program. So again, if you find that valuable, if you think that's going to be of use to you, I think it's a pretty awesome program. I do hope you take advantage of it. Let me just kind of leave you with one more thought. And this is from our friend Jim Rohn. Jim says, we must wage an intense lifelong battle against the constant downward pull. I don't know about you guys. I know people who are really down in this time of history and are becoming a little immobilized by it. But as Jim says, if you relax, bugs and weeds of negativity will move into the garden, take away everything of value. In other words, we're compelled during these difficult times to stay motivated, to stay enthusiastic. I use the picture of the what do you call it, Wizard of Oz, because I figure it's like, okay, here's your yellow brick road. There's Oz. I hope you decide to walk that path, but be aware that there's going to be some flying monkeys, right? So do the best you can to weather that storm, and just do the very best you can, period, because life is good. Opportunities are massive, and as far as I'm concerned, we're going to come through this thing better than we went into it. So I hope that I've been true to my promise of giving you guys some tools and strategies to help you to massively continue to grow, to plant some seeds that are going to work out well for you as time goes on. And I hope that I do get to see you at a future conference, or that maybe you end up taking advantage of some of the products and programs we have. I do want to give you one more thing here, and that is my email address. So I am reachable, and I appreciate you guys so much for taking the time and being here. So if there's anything that I could do for you at any point now or in the future, feel free to email me. I'm actually kind of committed to being in touch with people. I feel like if you're what we call a thought leader, which is what they call me, then I don't like to be in that lofty, you know, celebrity position. I'd rather be like somebody who's helping you, and maybe someday you'll help me. Having said all that, I'm reading quickly through some of the comments here, and I'm seeing some really nice comments and some really funny comments. And Sandra says she says, "I'm wearing a skirt, trust me." And then there's some people who are saying, you know, well, Sandra talks about being focused, loves Elton John. And Edie mentioned something that I said that for her was an aha moment, and I'm thankful that you had an aha moment. Is there anything else that anybody wants to say? It looks like you guys have another webinar coming up, so I need to jump off of here and give you a chance to do your other webinar. Email me if you have a question. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I ran a little bit over, but God bless you all, and have an awesome day.
Thank you, Steve, so much. We really appreciate it. You're
My
wonderful.
pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Edie.
Bye, Laura.